Okay guys, so this weekend I had every intention of going out and doing the on-field battle between the current reel of the moment, the Curado DC, up against its older brother, the Curado K. And I was going to throw some casting plugs to see which one really casts the farthest between these two with actual field measurements, because I really couldn't tell that much of a difference between them on the water. But the overwhelming amount of people wanting me to take the Curado DC and battle it up against another reel was just too much. So I decided to instead put it up against the Scorpion DC. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and put it up against the METANIUM DC and the super expensive ANTARES DC. And these reels are going to be taking part in the standardized testing, the lipless crankbait test. That's a test that pretty much all the reels that I have already went through. That's where I take the the Strike King Red Eye Shad, 1/2 ounce, and I use Trilene Big Game 12-pound mono and see which one casts the farthest. Now, strangely enough, out of all the reels that have went through this test, the reel that has beaten everyone, pretty much every other reel, hands down pretty easily, was the Curado K. So these reels have to beat this reel. I'm not gonna retest this, it's just gonna take up too much time. But we're gonna see how they perform in relation to the Curado K once it's all said and done. So I will see you guys out on the field. Okay guys, so first up we have the Curado DC. I have the external dial set to setting number 1. I have the spool tension set to in between tight and loose, if that makes sense. It's not quite as loose as Shimano recommends in the instructions, but it's not quite as tight as something with the old VBS system. So it kind of falls like this. And of course we are throwing the 1/2 ounce lipless crankbait. Here we go. Oh shit, 174 feet 3 inches. $171 feet 5 inches. Shit, 178 feet 3 inches. $170 feet 6 inches. What? 192 feet 1 inch. Damn. Okay guys, up next we have the Scorpion DC. I have the inside line mode set to braid, and I have the outside dial set to the lowest it can go, which is 1. And I have the spool tension set to just minimize the side-to-side play. So here we go. $172 feet even. 174 feet 1 inch. (174 feet 3 inches). Whoa, 187 8 inches. Wow, 189 feet 2 inches. Okay guys, so I got some good news and I got some bad news. Now the bad news is you're probably wondering what happened to the METANIUM and ANTARES DC casting footage. Now with the ANTARES DC, that was the second reel that I was going to test after the Curado, and unfortunately I blew that spool up so bad that I couldn't salvage it during practice. So yeah, there goes the ANTARES DC. And with the METANIUM DC, that was the last reel that I was going to test, and it started raining really bad, so I decided that I was going to put those two against each other head to head, hopefully sometime this week, so we can see how all the DC reels compare with each other. Now I wish I was able to do it on the same day, but unfortunately that's just how it goes. Now the good news is I was able to complete the testing for the two reels that everyone wanted to see battle against each other, the Curado DC and the Scorpion DC. Let me tell you, it was a battle and it was filled with some surprises, at least for me. Now, but before we get to those results, I'm going to pull the scale out and do something that I should have did, was get some weights on these spools with line. Okay, so I got the spools pulled out, and the Curado DC spool without line I believe weighed 20.1 grams. So with a full spool of a 12-pound mono, you're looking at 29, almost 29.1 grams. So the spool gained 9 grams, or actually, yeah, I believe 9 grams, because it is a 150 capacity spool. Now the Scorpion DC, the spools are the same width at 25 millimeters, but as you can see, they've kind of shortened this and brought this in to make this a 100 capacity spool, and I believe this weighs somewhere around 17 grams without line. So with line you're looking at 25.2, so it gained roughly, I guess, almost 7 or 8 grams. So that's kind of important when looking at these results, because 25.2, 29.1, so you're looking at about a 4 gram difference in spool weight between the two. And while I got this scale out, I'm going to go ahead and weigh these reels with line, because I believe a lot of people think that the Curado DC is a super heavy reel, and that it probably weighs a lot more than the Scorpion. And let's see what the scale says. Okay, so filled with line, the Curado DC is 8.1, we'll say 8.15 ounces, while the Scorpion is 7.85. So you're looking at 7.8, about 0.3 of an ounce difference between the two. So for all you guys who thought the Scorpion DC was much lighter, that's simply not the case. It is lighter on paper, but when you're holding them, you really can't feel the difference between the two. This feels just a tad bit heavier, but out on the casting field I could not tell the difference. Okay guys, so let's get to the nitty-gritty, and what everyone's been waiting for, the results of this test. Now, to be honest, with the spool control issues of the Curado DC, I thought this thing was going to get beat really bad by the others. But let's see what happened. Now, the Scorpion DC averaged 179.4 feet. So it dethroned the Curado K by over 10 feet for this particular lure. Now the Curado DC averaged 177.4 feet. So it got beat by the Scorpion, but it was by only 2 feet. But as Vin Diesel said in The Fast and the Furious, doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. So it's a very good showing in my book for the Curado DC. It showed that it can beat the Curado K in distance casting, at least for that particular lure. And it came very close to the Scorpion DC, at least on paper. Now let's talk about some things that I noticed and that you guys probably noticed out on the field as well. Now, that distance with the Curado DC did not come nearly as easy as it did with the Scorpion. With the Scorpion, I just set the line mode to braid inside, set the dial to 1, set the spool tension to just remove the side-to-side play, and that was it. Didn't have to worry about any overruns, didn't have to worry about any kind of spool control issues being on that minimum setting. And in fact, I may have been able to get a little bit more distance by loosening this up even more, but I didn't want to fool with it because I may have made it cast short if the spool was rattling side to side. Now with the Curado DC, despite what Shimano says on this little piece of paper that you get, let you guys read that. In order to get the maximum mobility out of this reel in the #1 setting on the brake, I had to tighten up the spool tension to about halfway in between loose and what a lot of people will set their Shimanos at, which is, when the lure hits the ground, there's only a couple of coils. And even in that setting, the spool would overrun in the middle of the cast, and then it would sort itself out towards the end. But yeah, the spool control was not nearly as good as the Scorpion, as you guys seen in the on the water videos. But when you get it set up, it can cast with the best of them. So the $1 million question is, if I had $250 or around that kind of money, which one would I get? And that's a no-brainer for me, Scorpion DC all day. In my book, it looks better. It's a lot easier to get long distances. You don't have to worry about the spool nearly as much as the Curado. And it's just got that JDM coolness to it. Now, what does the Curado DC do better? Well, it's a little bit smoother. Not that much smoother, because it does have the micro module gears, but the Scorpion DC is super smooth. And that's due to the fact that the handle tolerance is a little bit better on this Scorpion than on the Curado. Now the Curado also has the more comfortable knobs, these big paddle grips. Both of them are ergonomically shaped and contoured. And of course the Curado, if you get it from America or domestically, you're going to get that Shimano warranty with it. Now with the Scorpion, you're going to have to take your chances. So there we go. The winner of the Scorpion DC versus Curado DC battle. Part 1 is the Scorpion DC eking out a win by 2 feet over the Curado DC. So if you got a Curado DC on order, on pre-order, I wouldn't necessarily cancel that, because this thing can cast a long way despite having that much heavier spool. And as you can see, it pretty much outcasted every other reel in the lipless crankbait test except for the Scorpion DC. So there we go, guys. the results of the Curado versus Scorpion. Thanks a lot.